Let's have some football, ball or bull, the slaying of the bull. But before we start, let's have a good, nice Belgian beer.
En Alderweireld! Oh, hij trapt er binnen! Hij trapt er binnen! Het is Alderweireld! Iedereen wordt gek!
Oh la la! Wat een trap! Uitgerekend Toby Alderweireld! Het kan toch niet mooier geschreven worden dan dat het Toby Alderweireld is die die bal met een verwoestende kracht in de bovenhoek jaagt. Wat een geweldige apotheose van deze titelstrijd. Wie kan dat nu geloven?
Want Toby Alderweireld maakt Antwerpen kampioen! Dit kun je niet voorstellen! Dit kun je niet voorstellen! Wie heeft dit scenario geschreven? Antwerpen is kampioen! Antwerpen is kampioen! Ja, Mr. Antwerpen himself! Wat een kogel van Toby Alderweireld!
Let me give you a short explanation of what is happening here. At the last day of competition, 3 teams can still be champion. 2 matches are played, Genk against Antwerp and Union against Brugge. So at the start, at minute 0, Antwerp is still champion. So at minute 45, Genk is champion. 46, Union. 89, Genk. At 94, 1 minute before ending, Toby Alderweireld makes this goal. Because the game is played in Genk, the Antwerp supporters are watching the game at home on a big screen. So after victory, the Antwerp players go back home with the bus to the stadium of Antwerp. There the cup is brought to the center. The players arrive at the stadium and there they are put on a podium and are given the cup. Well, nothing special, you might say. I thought so too, until I saw this picture. I nearly fell off my chair. What the hell? So I started to investigate this picture. At first glance I thought it was the outside of the tabernacle. But then I noticed it was actually the inside. Let's start with the Ark of the Covenant, the black box, the Kaaba of Mecca. If you take a look at the Ark of the Covenant, you can even see the little wings on top of the black box. Then you have the altar of incense, table of showbread, golden lampstand, and a laver. Now my question would be, if you create a construction like this, you already know in advance you are going to win the title. How is that possible? I see 3 possibilities. 1, you bribe some players of the other side, but then take a look at this goal. 2, you have a very good fortune teller in your family. But the most probable in my view, you attract it. And when you want something from God, it's always the same. Now would 14 cows, 6 sheep, 2 horses and a parrot be enough to win a football cup in Belgium? Or do you have to cross the line of this? Now let's say you want to be the ruler of the planet. What sacrifice would be needed? Would this be enough? Maybe add some 150,000 soldiers and counting? Would that be enough? Or is there a bigger sacrifice needed? Celestial navigation, what is it? You are using the stars to locate your position. But what happens when you do not have all the information? What happens when you do not know that the Earth goes in an analemma? You go from point A to point B. You think you are going in a straight line. But you are making curves. Now you start mapping with this result. What you should be doing is remove the curves from your calculations. But in the second part of the analemma you are going back. So instead of going this way, you should be going this way. And this would give you a completely different map. And instead of the balls of Mercator, you would end up with a circular map. Science thinks that the universe is moving. That is like sitting in a train in the land of the moving poles. Look, there's another one. Now you can call it ignorance. But the moment you send a rocket into space, it becomes a criminal offense. Let's recapitulate. Let's zoom in on our crater. Remember, our system is always doubling. 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 4, 4 and 4 is 8, 8 and 8 is 16, which is 7, and so on. This is the cell division, the motor of organic life. I called it the VW system. Now let's zoom in on Saturn, Linné, Atlantis. A crater in a crater in a crater. Two triangles counter-rotating gives you the rings of Atlantis. In the center you get the black cube, the Eye of Ra. You have the 3, 6, 9 and the minus 3, 6, 9. So instead of doubling, we are now dividing. Let's put a mirror in the center. 2 possibilities. But let's take this half and turn it upside down. Now this could be mirrored again. But instead of doing that, let's draw a line. Take the center point. That gives you 2 L's, half pyramids. The red L and the blue L. Well, I already made a few videos about the mirror, how Horus is infiltrating through the mirror. The counter-rotating system is creating 3 rings of water. When you take a look at the Hereford map, you can see evidence that this was happening on the Cratera map. You can see a ring of water, the ocean. So you are doubling, mirroring and dividing. But wait a minute, isn't the cell looking like Atlantis? What if the counter rotation of the pyramids is creating a mirror? Half of the cell is still in the illusion it is a whole cell. So by the trick of illusion, a cell is divided in two. Reminds me of our crater. The ice wall makes you wonder if there is a counterpart in our crater. Well, you know, I already compared our crater with our brain. Now I start to understand why we have only a right turning brain or a left turning brain. Now in my previous video I showed that everything that is time related moves in an analemma. So how would you perceive a rotation with a perfect functioning brain? You would see both rotations at the same time. What would happen if you would put a mirror in the center of your brain? First of all, your brain would be in the illusion that it is still intact. But you would only perceive one part of the movement. And on the other side, the same story. Let's put in light and darkness. The darkness is the part you are not seeing. What happens when I remove the darkness? You perceive only one direction. So you will perceive this image only right turning or left turning. If this is true, our brain is in constant stroboscopic effect. Left brain working, right brain working. That means we are only using one part of our brain because of the mirror illusion. So you can take the saying divide and conquer literally. Split the brain and bring people in confusion. What about time? Right turning, left turning, going forward in time, going backwards in time? What would happen if you are in equilibrium? It would probably mean that time is standing still. If time is standing still, there can be no matter. No flesh, no body. What happens when we are in one side of the brain? Could it be that in your sleep time is going backwards? Or maybe death is being in the center, the state without a body. So if we are constantly watching the clock, we are kept in a constantly right turning brain. Logic and facts. Now let's take this a step further. Take Ukraine. Someone mailed me, Ukraine is your crane. First let's take a look at the colors. It started with the magenta, Putin supposedly redrawing his troops. Then we have the Ukraine flag, blue and yellow. Zelensky constantly flashing two types of green. And yes, we can now use cluster munition, no problem. The tie of Biden. So this means that colors are influencing our brain. So let's take a look at your crane. Right brain, left brain. In the center we have the river Dnieper, or something like that. And then we have Crimea, the cerebellum, the annexation of Crimea. Well, it's the cerebellum they are after. You have Putin. Putain is whore in French, the whore of Babylon. We have a new Horus of Babylondon. Well, Putain was a good friend of the old Horus. Well, you know my opinion that Putin is a secret agent of the British. And together with the American army, they are destroying the right half of your crane. One of the reasons of the war was the Donbass. Reminds me of dumbass, playing little word games. But let's concentrate on the mirror. The river Dnieper. Well, we already had two events. The first one was the destruction of the dam. Zelensky says it's Putin, Putin says it's Zelensky. But let's take a look at the second event. The nuclear plant, Zaporizhzhia.
It's been a nerve-wracking night for all of Ukraine, but especially here in the vicinity of that nuclear power plant. That's after Russia and Ukraine accused one another of plotting an attack in the complex over the next couple of days. Overnight, President Zelensky outlining his claims in detail that Russian troops have placed objects resembling explosives on the roof of several power units at the complex. Those are his words. That's after Russia accused Ukraine of planning to strike the plant with missiles or drones packed with radioactive waste from other nuclear facilities. Neither side providing any evidence of those claims.
Fear is the key of their system. Let me remind you of an earlier event on the river Dnieper. Makes you wonder why they want this nuclear event to happen on the river. What really happened in Chernobyl? Nuclear energy, the cell nucleus, splitting the atom, splitting the cell, creating the mirror. Makes you wonder, what is nuclear energy all about? Is it about radiating the water? Japan also is one of their favorite targets. Hiroshima, a strange explosion in Fukushima. But it's okay now. UN Nuclear Agency approves Japan's plan to release Fukushima water into the ocean. No problem, people, no problem. Nuclear chain reaction. A nucleus chain reaction. Nuclear flash. Nucleus flash. What is nuclear radiation? Mirror, mirror on the wall. If you have only one half of your brain working, the other half would be the inversion of the first half. Maybe that is the reason they like the numbers 33, 22, 11. Something strange with the Egyptian statues. They seem perfectly symmetrical. Thought, the little voice in your head. In German, Tod is death. In Flemish, death is dood. Well, you may ask yourself, the bigger Earth, a cell, Atlantis, they all have the same shape. Our crater has the shape of a brain. And Ukraine has the shape of a brain. How is that possible? It doesn't make sense. Let's take a look at a kaleidoscope. Now let's take the picture of a young woman. Put a red dot on her head. What happens? You see the same dot on every reflection. So why am I seeing Crater Earth everywhere I'm looking? Someone sent me this picture of Giza Genius, a rapper, made an album. Beneath the surface, well, if that isn't Crater Earth, made in 1999. Well, this guy knows about the Greater Earth. Let me give you another possibility. What if the kaleidoscope can change past and future instantly? So you have the human brain. You have the archon. The archon puts a mirror between the two brain halves. The archon projects its reality on the mirror. Because nature is looking for equilibrium, the real brain is now morphing into its false reflection. This is how the archon multiplies. Let's think about this kaleidoscope reality. So the big is identical to the small, and vice versa. If our crater is our brain, what is the alien artifact lying next to it?